Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Nate Gibbons, Chief Experience Officer at QuickFi. Thanks for joining me, Nate.
My pleasure. Happy to be here. Thanks, Jesse.
No, happy to be here too. And I just, I like that. I love that title, Chief Experience Officer. What was funny is I was working on an agenda for another gentleman. He actually lives near Buffalo, and that was his title. And I was just like, we need more of these.
Well, I'm familiar with Buffalo. I grew up in a small town called Batavia, which is about a half hour from Buffalo. And coincidentally, our head of marketing is from Buffalo. So that area is near and dear to my heart. But yeah, I mean, that title is, I think it's becoming more popular in this space. And I think in its simplest form, I just, anything that has to do with the customer experience, there's a lot of different touch points throughout a transaction and a process, whether it's with an end user borrower or with the manufacturers and banks that we also serve. So anything that has an impact on what they're experiencing is something that I help oversee in terms of this strategy.
That's fantastic. Yeah, improving that was it customer journey goes a long way. And I've always been on the business development side, and you've been in this industry for quite a while. It's you sit here and some of these opportunities take 5, 10, 15 years to get. And some of those 15-year relationships can be destroyed in 15 seconds if it's not correctly managed. So
yeah,
kudos to you and Mark for developing that role, at QuickFi, man. But for those people who might not be familiar with yourself, Nate, you mind just kind of introducing yourself and your career to date in equipment finance?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So again, Nate Gibbons, and as Jesse articulated, I'm currently the Chief Experience Officer at QuickFi. I started out in the industry with little to no knowledge at all about commercial finance or even finance in general. What a lot of people may not realize is I was actually a Spanish major in college. So I graduated with this degree and no clue what I was supposed to do with it. I mean, unlike a lot of my friends who were in college at the time who were just really well prepared and had internships under their belt, I was not prepared. I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to figure it all out for the first time and and on my own for the most part. So when I graduated, unlike a lot of people who have a plan, I just kind of started applying all over the place. In fact, I lived I just in this small little apartment and didn't have a job at the time. I walked right across the street to a CVS, put in an application, and I worked there for about 4 months just because it was right across the street and I needed a way to pay rent. So while I was doing that, I was applying to all different industries and jobs. And one of them happened to be an equipment leasing company called First American. So somehow I was able to convince them to take a chance on somebody who knew nothing about business, finance, this sort of Spanish major background and a bunch of other random courses that I took. And they did take a chance and it actually turned out to be a great fit. So I started out my career there. I spent most of my time in operations. I was eventually asked to oversee the strategy for professional learning and development, which was a neat and exciting opportunity. And then not too long after that, I had an opportunity to join forces with Bill Verhelli, who was the founder of First American, Mark Tomaselli, Mike Ziegelman, and some other folks to start QuickFi.
Well, perfect. And the rest is history, right?
The rest is history. Yep.
Oh, well, yeah, it was interesting. I mean, my first job out of college, I actually had an internship at the Carousel Mall.
Oh yeah.
At working for JCPenney.
Yep.
So I think October of my senior year in college, they offered me a job and asked me where I wanted to go. I'm like, I want the biggest store that you have.
Yep.
and that was in the Bronx. And I'm like, okay, let's go.
You're thinking big right from the start.
Then I didn't have to worry. But then I didn't have to worry about any any job the rest of my time in college. I could just enjoy. But anyhow, I mean, kudos to you, man. Like and like a lot of people, they don't go to school for this industry. So typically people just kind of stumble into it.
Yeah, and I'm no exception. And we're trying to change that now. I mean, I've really gotten a lot of gratification out of being more proactive in the academic space to create more awareness about this industry and how good it's been to me. You know, I often realize just how fortunate I've been. I mean, for my first real career out of college, to be at a company with great leadership, with just great people, where I really was able to learn a lot and grow and be stretched. And, you know, I didn't know at the time that this would turn into my long-term career. But it was just kind of one of those scenarios where you put a blindfold on and you swing a bat, and I happen to hit a home run. And that doesn't happen often. So I realize how fortunate I am.
Well, no, that's fantastic. And working for Bill, you know, I know he's always been a strong proponent of the trade associations and equipment finance. So a gentleman like that wants to get young talent like yourself in front of people, and you know, that's what helped me in my career too, is going to some of those ELFA events and getting in front of people and meeting your peers. That helps a lot as well.
It does, yeah. It's been great to have advocates like Bill and, you know, Mark and Mike and so many others, you know, that have raised their hand and said Nate can do it. And in many cases, it was before I was ready or felt that I was deserving of the opportunity. And I'm grateful because I've just met so many incredible people and have such strong relationships as a result of my involvement. Not to mention that, as I mentioned before, it's one of the areas of just tremendous fulfillment, being able to sort of lock arms with other folks in the industry and work together towards making ourselves and the industry better.
Yeah, I would have been like, no hablo inglés, español. That's fantastic. All right, well, I'm gonna have to practice some Spanish with you next. I mean, do you still speak it at all, or
I
consider
still do
yourself
speak
fluent?
it. So occasionally we'll have clients that'll be primarily Spanish speaking. So once in a while I'll have to brush up on it. I didn't learn a lot of the, you know, commercial leasing jargon when I was pursuing my degree, but I did pick some things up. And coincidentally, my wife is Hispanic. So
Okay.
when we were dating and I was trying to impress her parents and grandparents, that came in handy a little bit. I was able to get some brownie points that way.
I went the other route where I just sat there and played like I didn't know Spanish. I had like 8 years of it. And then all of a sudden you'd hear like gringo, gordo, just these things. And it's like, hey, like I know what
I
you're
know what that
saying.
means.
Like you're not saying like guapo or anything else. It's like, come on, give me the good stuff.
Yeah, comes in handy sometimes, even
You
if
know,
it's just when people are talking behind your back.
if you ever need anything, just call Ricky Rios. He'll give you whatever you need.
Oh, well, I've done that actually. So I'll actually sometimes call him and say, hey, we got this transaction or this account going on. And I think that I have this position the right way, but so sometimes he'll check me and correct me. And he's, as you know, phenomenal person, super supportive and helpful. So I've definitely taken advantage of his expert knowledge of the.
I just love being with him and his dad. And it's like, guys, I'm still here. I'm still here. Going off in their own little thing. My ex-wife was Puerto Rican. So that's where I was saying it's like they'd sit there and it's like you start talking and all of a sudden they go into the other language and you're just like, come on, like help me out here. Like still here. Mm-hmm. All right, sorry, I've totally gone off track here.
No worries, it's a fun conversation.
Do you mind introducing QuickFi?
Yeah, sure. So QuickFi is a technology platform. It's a business equipment financing platform that's really intended to serve banks and manufacturers and even independent companies. But the purpose of QuickFi is to help allow organizations to offer financing for their customers in a way that's completely digital, that's self-service, that's transparent, and that just removes a lot of the friction from the traditional equipment financing process. Unlike the current traditional process, which, as you know, can sometimes take days, weeks, and even months to consummate a transaction, we've really leveraged some new technologies to take what used to be weeks or, even in shorter cases, days, and we've condensed that to a matter of minutes. So it's extremely fast. And it's something that we think is going to potentially just transform the way that commercial equipment lending is done.
Okay. That's perfect. And how old's the organization?
We started in 2018, January 2018. So
Mhm.
we're still very, very young, but in that short amount of time, we've really been excited about some of the things that we've been able to achieve and the momentum we've gained, and even the reception in the market, both from borrowers and users who are financing the equipment, but also the our partners which are the banks and the manufacturers that are offering financing for their customers.
So, I mean, going from First American to, that was what, the traditional equipment finance organization for the most part, right? Going to, this organization, how is that? Right?
It's been exciting. I mean, even at First American, I mean, we considered ourselves to be pretty cutting edge in terms of the technology that we were using, the approach that we would take to engage customers and prospective customers.
Sure.
So, but to transition to something that's completely new, which is and completely different, it's been exciting. I mean, I was at a point in my career where I really enjoyed what I was doing. I really had tremendous respect and admiration for the people that I was working with. I still do.
Mhm.
I was looking for something, I think, that was going to challenge me in a different way, and honestly, to be able to help create something that's just massively different, and I would even say a bit revolutionary, was something that I was really excited to be a part of.
Okay.
My nature has really not been the type to take on new ventures and to do things that are risky and not predictable. I usually go in the opposite direction. I like knowing what the plan is and what's going to happen exactly 3 years from now. And I've even had people ask, "Hey, Nate, would you ever start your own business?" And my my answer was always, "No, that sounds terrible. That's not for me at all. I mean, that just sounds stressful." And lo and behold, I find myself doing the very thing that I vehemently told people that I would never get involved with. Um, but part of it had to do with just the people that I knew I would be working with. Bill, Mark, Mike, Courtney Diogardi, who also worked at First American. That made the decision easier, just because I've always had tremendous respect and admiration for them. And I think I just felt that I was at a point in my life where I was supposed to do something significant, where I was supposed to do something contrary to my nature. And I think that's just how life is sometimes, right? Where occasionally an opportunity will present itself that may not have been expected, or maybe it was and you planned for it, but an opportunity might present itself. And sometimes we don't always recognize it when it's there, and sometimes we don't feel prepared to take advantage of it. And for me, I just knew that this was one of those scenarios where just everything inside of me said, this is what you're supposed to do now. And it had the potential to be something really significant and memorable, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, you always sit there and it's like, I want to do it, but it's stepping out of your comfort zone, and then
Yeah,
just kind of rip that band-aid off and let's go.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I
And
mean,
surrounding
I mean, you just started your own business, so you're very familiar with that feeling.
yeah, it's calculated risk, right? Like
Yeah.
tactical, strategic, but nothing's guaranteed, and we'll kind of see how things go. But
Yeah.
definitely surrounding yourself with those people definitely helps. The ease the comfort a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. So I guess traditionally being on the cutting edge of technology, if you don't mind, we'll just kind of talk about that. What would you think? What would you say is some like risk? Obviously, we know the risks, right? But like risk versus reward, like any kind of thoughts there, Nate, or even some best practices that you might be able to share with the audience here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the risks, especially when you're doing something that hasn't been done before, that there's no path for, is whether the timing is right. Because even if you have a novel idea, timing is everything, and we've seen a lot of examples of that. So that's one of the big risks. It's whether the timing is right, and I think the obvious one is whether there's going to be acceptance or demand for what you think is a great idea. So that can't be avoided. And when you're trying to trailblaze, when you're trying to do things that are a little bit unconventional, that's always going to be one of the risks that you run into. I've even personally, and I know some of my colleagues have even wondered whether there's risk of upsetting a lot of the relationships that we've worked so hard to build over, over the time that we were at First American. Because when I think of our platform and our technology, one of the things that we've realized is that we're really not a direct lender. And we've even kind of gone through some changes of identity, partly because of our experience at First American. So that was important for us to arrive at the conclusion of who we really are and what our value is that we bring to the market. And I think once we determine that we really are not a lender, a conventional lender that just has neat technology, but we're really a technology company, I think that helped to alleviate some of those risks about even the relationships and about whether we're just kind of coming in to try and compete and put other people out of business. And that's really not at all what we're doing. But I think anytime you have an opportunity to do something that's transformative, something that has the potential to make your industry better or to make the people around you better, to make society, the world better. If you have the ability to, if you have people who are willing to engage in that endeavor with you, then even if your idea doesn't sort of pan out, or even if it fails, which is a term that has various meaning, then I think it's worth it. So the rewards for us have fortunately, at least so far, outweighed the risks, and there's still lots of them, but we've been extremely fortunate. We've been extremely humbled by the amount of support that we've received from, again, industry colleagues that we've developed and strengthened relationships with over time. And we just feel a tremendous sense of purpose in what we're doing. We feel very, very passionate about, again, not just bringing some neat, fancy technology to the space, but about truly helping the players in this industry become more successful and more effective and be able to deliver an experience to their customers that's consistent with where technology is and where consumer preferences are now.
Yeah, I can imagine when you guys were starting this thing up and as it continues to evolve, where it's like, hey, look, we're not your competitor. We're here to make it your go to market easier for you. And I'm sure that's a hard concept for people to kind of understand until you can actually have a conversation with them.
Yeah, that's very true. But yeah, I think people have started to realize that, this business is entirely different. So we're really not just sort of another lender with some cool tech. I mean, we're really, and we truly see ourselves as a technology company. And kind of the neat thing about that is we've realized that it's for manufacturers and lenders alike, banks, independents, we're enabling both to be able to offer a digital frictionless financing experience for their customers. And we knew that sort of identity shift for us from our prior business, that identity change for us was something that would be that would allow us to have a greater impact. And it was something that would allow us to be more helpful and more transformative in changing the industry for the better and helping our colleagues transform and become more successful, and as opposed to being just another competing company.
Nope, that makes complete sense, man. And so I guess being on that edge of technology, going in where I think the country's in an interesting spot right now, going into 2023 with all these rates and everything else that's going on, supply chain. Do you see another potential disruptor coming into this space anytime in the near future? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I personally have been kind of intrigued by some of the things that are going on in adjacent or related industries. If you think about the industries that we serve, the sort of micro industries, healthcare, there's a lot of really neat innovation that's taking place in that space, which is going to cause significant change to how we serve the healthcare industry. So I think of some of those implications of and how this industry can potentially be very well positioned, even for some of the new tech and AI and just developments and advancements that are taking place. But I don't know if there's a specific type of technology that I think of disrupting the commercial equipment lending space. But I think that there are a lot of neat tools and technologies out there, but I think what's really has the potential to be disruptive are the things that enable changes in organizational design and in business model, right? I mean, there's the tools that are out there, and there's some neat cool ones in terms of AI and things that make identity verification much faster, much more secure, much more accurate, things that automate the processes that have historically been very manual and very time consuming, things that allow a lot of the waiting in the leasing process to be either reduced or eliminated entirely. I mean, those things are neat, but it's the ways in which the technology enables new business models and changes in organizational design that I think is going to cause the most significant change for the better in the industry. So again, I don't know if there's a specific type of technology, but
Sure.
I think it's the way that the tech can be used to help organizations think differently about their model that they do. I know that sort of in terms of the mentality, it's often how can we do things that make our existing process or our existing systems a little bit faster or a little bit more efficient, right? So I think that mentality is going to start to shift, right? So as opposed to just what gradual incremental things can we do to become a little bit cheaper, a little bit more cost effective, a little bit more efficient. And I think the really big sort of transformative shift is going to be, why does this process even exist the way that it does right now? Why are we even doing it this way? And based on where preferences are, not where they're heading, where they are right now,
right?
How can we rethink the way that we operate in a way that allows customers to have an experience that's as simple and intuitive and frictionless as some of the things that they experience on the consumer side?
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole not accepting status quo, or, well, that's the way it's always been done. What's interesting in my 17, well, I guess going on 18 years now in this industry, when you go to certain organizations across the country, it was always the folder, right? Follow the folder around the office.
Right.
And you go and there's like these folders everywhere, all over the floor and everything. And it's like, what is going on here?
Right.
Like I don't understand. And I think the pandemic was allowed people to accelerate. I mean, because e-signing was like the buzz forever. And then I think it kind of gradually forced people's hand to adopt some of this technology that should have been adopted like 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
And as I think some of the senior leaders in this industry age out, I'm curious to see that next level of individuals, I guess our age, even though I'm older than you, like we're not going to accept that status quo. It's not that's the way it's always been. It's, why are we even doing this?
Right.
Like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And it's, and it's not just for the sake of being disruptive, it's not just for the sake of being like the problem child that always has to have a reason to blow things up. I mean, it's all about making the customer experience better. I mean,
Right.
if that's where our mentality starts, is what can we do to better serve our customers who earned, the right to be treated fairly and to be given a smooth, seamless experience. And I think that mentality helps drive innovation, right? Because it eliminates the gap between what we think the customer feels and
Sure.
what they truly feel. And in many cases, that gap can be pretty wide. I've been guilty of that myself, where when you get into a routine and a certain way of doing something for a while, you can sometimes lose sight of what a customer truly experiences. And when you asked about that transition from First American to QuickFi, I think that was one of the things that gave me the most revelation, right? It was being able to start with a clean sheet of paper, to start from scratch and say, if I were really a customer, a borrower looking to acquire equipment and went through the financing process, the current traditional financing process, would I be happy with that experience? Would that experience be consistent with where I think things should be in terms of how fast it should be, or how much waiting needs to take place, or whether the terms and conditions are consistent with what I thought I was signing up for?
Sure.
So those are the things that I think are most interesting, and those are the types of mindsets and capabilities that technology makes easier.
No, that's fantastic. And I love that blank sheet, reference there. The only challenge with a blank sheet is it's blank. You put your
Yeah.
you put your ideas on it, and it's
Yeah.
like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Go
And
execute it. And it's like,
it's
crap.
just a mess at first.
I can't blame anyone else for my ideas on this
Yeah.
blank sheet of paper that I came up with. But
Yeah.
that's how things get done, right?
Yeah. That's right. Got to start somewhere.
Um, what advice, Nate, would you give to someone just coming into this industry? Um, you know, someone just got into equipment finance. Any particular advice that you'd offer them?
Yeah, I would that's a good question. I think initially I would tell them to resist the temptation to fall into how things have always been done. I mean, the benefit, and I think even a little bit of the attraction to this industry is how well established it is,
Yeah,
right? And when you're in a world where things are changing quickly, where companies are going out of business, where the pandemic and other things are just completely blowing things up and disrupting things, getting into a career, you want to get into something that has longevity.
sure.
And that's one of the things that this industry has. I mean, we know how to make a lot of money. We know how to be very, very successful. We've been doing that for centuries. The one downside to that, right, is it can create this temptation to keep doing things how they've been done, because how they've been done has caused us to be very successful. So I think one piece of advice I would give is um, to maintain the mentality that things can always be better, that the
Okay.
world can be better, that this industry can be better, and to constantly, you mentioned before the status quo. I think that that's something that has prevented us from reaching our full potential as an industry. So one advice would be to not let yourself get tainted or biased by the way things have always been done. And not that it's all bad. I mean, there are things that I've learned that helped us to really learn the business. So I'm not disparaging every aspect of
Sure,
commercial
sure, sure,
banking,
sure, 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 sure.
but to have a fresh mentality about the possibilities is something that's going to help us to reach our potential. I know with new hires and things that we're bringing in, I constantly encourage them to ask questions, even provocative ones, even ones that are potentially controversial. And for whatever makes you, the things that make you unique, whether it's where you grew up or your ethnicity or the school you went to or the type of friends or the music you listen to, there are things that make us unique. There are things that we're inclined to. And particularly for people just starting out in this space, I think especially the younger generations, they're the closest to a lot of these trends that are taking place. They're closest to a lot of the technological advances that are taking place. So those are all things that are advantageous for the people that are already in the industry to become aware of.
Yeah, no, it's adding on to that there, it's like be your true self. And if the people that you work with don't welcome that, then there's other places for you to go where they'll actually welcome that. So
Yeah, and that's more true now than ever. I mean, we saw that because of the pandemic and working remotely. And unfortunately, and we see this a lot in our space now, that a lot of organizations are really struggling to retain talented individuals and to attract them. So, you're absolutely right. There's a space and there's room for you to be able to utilize your talents. So,
well, I
but
think
use
that's
them
one
right
of the
away. Use them right away.
well, I mean, but that's why having good leadership like you've been fortunate to have, right? I mean, you have people like that, and they're in those I could think of maybe a dozen leaders in this industry that inspire me. Like even when I talk to them, it's like, wow, that's amazing how you do that. But on the other side, it's like the people I've worked for, or even like as customers, it's like, huh.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is going right along there. It's like, okay,
yeah,
all right.
that's
But
right.
I ask everyone who comes on here to give me a little fun fact about themselves. And the fact that I think you and I grew up probably like 90 minutes from one another, which that's
Yeah.
not fun for maybe you and I, but no one else. Is there anything else that you would like to share, Nate? Like besides that you're fluent in Spanish, I learned that today. What else makes Nate tick outside of equipment finance?
Interesting. Well, I mean, a big thing for me is family. I'm definitely a family guy. When I was growing up, there were four of us, right? So I had an older brother. I was
Okay.
next in command. I had a younger sister who was the only girl, and a younger brother who was the baby. So when you talk about middle child syndrome, I was right smack. So oldest brother, he's like the oldest, the only girl, then there's the baby, and then there was me. And it was a great childhood growing up. I mean, I had an awesome experience. I had a lot of fun. My father raised us on his own, and I think where I stood in that chain of command just created this self-imposed sense of insecurity and this
Mm.
desire to stand out in certain ways. And it's not because I was ever treated unfairly. My parents did a great job, but I don't know, it was just sort of this innate thing that I had. So that's, I think, one unique thing. And I guess I mentioned that because I've realized that it's made me who I am. That desire, even from a very, very young age, to in some way stand out and be noticed because my age and rank in my family line made it harder. I realized that I found myself working really hard at certain things and being ambitious. And I remember, I think it was in kindergarten or first grade, I came home and I had a really good report card, and my parents were just telling me how awesome of a job I did and how proud they were. And I said, huh. So I made a mental note just of
You good in
the
school.
gratification that I felt just from getting that type of praise. And, that's human nature, right? Like, we're creatures of
Yeah,
affirmation and praise and that sort of thing. And I really was seeking it in strong ways. And so I worked really hard in school, and, I just pursued things and just had this sense of ambition, not just for myself, but also I think that helped to develop a desire to help others be successful, to help others stand out in different ways, to help others realize what their unique traits are. And
sure.
it's a lot of it just has to do with being a middle child. So that's family's always been important to me. I've learned a lot from especially my siblings, who are all extremely smart and talented people, who I'm crazy about. What was interesting is when I was in my junior in high school, my father remarried. So I mentioned there were four of us growing up. The woman that my father remarried also had several kids of her own. In fact, I think there was one point where my father was courting her at the time, and I think he went into her place of work. He was a state trooper at the time, right? So he goes
Okay.
into her place of work. He's fully decked out in his state trooper uniform. I don't even think he was on duty that day. I think he was just trying to impress her.
Showing off.
So he goes in, and he's got his whole, the hat and everything. And she, I don't think at the time, was really interested in a relationship. And she said, look, I have four kids. She actually had four kids, and he just sort of leaned back and goes, yeah, nice try. I have four kids too. So anyway, they got married. It was like a Brady Bunch thing. There were originally three boys, one girl. She had three girls, one boy. We all sort of moved into our tiny little house in Batavia, New York, 5 females now, 1 bathroom. So that was kind of chaotic, and we fought like cats and dogs. It was pretty rough for a while, but we're actually super, super close now. And I actually really appreciate even the difficulty that we went through. But that unique family dynamic is something that I don't know if everyone knows about, but that's one of the things that I think has helped to make me who I am today.
No, that's fantastic, and thank you for sharing that story. I can imagine, like, you're a junior and you're just like, okay, I got one more year of this. I'm sure your brother was already graduated, so maybe he wasn't in the equation. So it's like, how much longer do I have to live with
Yeah, it
10
was,
people in
and I
one
didn't make it
roof?
easy. I mean, it's one of those times where I'm not proud looking back at how unreceptive I was to this new family dynamic. And I was pretty mature at the time, but she's such an incredible woman. I admire her so much, and super grateful just for what she's brought to the family and her kids and
Sure.
my new brothers and sisters.
Well, like you said, it's human nature, right? I mean, you were fighting for attention with 3 siblings.
Yeah.
Now you have 5 more
A
people
lot
you're
more.
fighting for attention with.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
that's
wasn't
awesome,
happy
Nate.
about it.
Thank you for you for sharing that. I guess my final question to you is: at the end of the day, why should an organization do business with you and Quickify?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's clear, and I'll admit that we're doing some things that are pretty bold. And when you're attempting to do something for which there's no roadmap, I mean, there's a lot of the risks that you talked about. There's a lot of the fun and excitement that goes into it. But one of the things that's really allowed us to get a lot of momentum and a lot of trust from our existing partners. I mean, we've been fortunate to be able to partner with several global manufacturers, several, large banks and very reputable organizations. And
Sure.
a lot of what organizations are looking for is a way to, again, not just make marginal incremental improvements to their business to add, to save a nickel or to make things slightly more efficient. I mean, I think there's a mutual awareness of just the times that we're in and of how much expectations have changed. Business borrowers no longer have patience to wait days or weeks for the financing process to be complete and for them to be able to progress through and get the equipment they need to run and grow their organizations. I mean, our industry, for as much benefit and for as much as we've served and added value, I mean, there's no mistaking the impact that we have on the economy, both domestically and internationally. But there's still a lot of room to improve in terms of making the customer experience easy and frictionless. And for the businesses that are out there, they're trying to grow their business and serve their communities who experience an equipment financing process that's unnecessarily slow or burdensome. It stifles their ability to grow and to run their business. So we've designed something that addresses that. We've created a platform that's unique, that's again transformative, that allows organizations, banks, manufacturers, lenders to really fast forward, right, from where they are now to their desired future state, to become a digital company, to become a self-service company, to become a company that's offering an experience and a financing process that has been condensed from days or weeks to literally a matter of minutes. And that can be done now without investing years and years of time and energy and resources and millions of dollars. So I think one of the things that we really bring to the table is the ability to change the way that organizations can adopt a new business model and adopt and implement organizational change, because again, it doesn't take anymore the time and years and financial resources to do that.
Sure.
So we're helping organizations do that and make that shift virtually overnight. So that's, I think, that really the value that we add as an organization and as a technology platform is that ability to help organizations implement organizational change and new business models without the years and millions of dollars to get there.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Nate, for your time today, man. It's always good seeing you. Stay warm. Obviously we're recording this, so like over the holidays. Got my little Christmas gnomes behind me. You got your tree there.
Got the tree, and it's snowing right outside my window, so I'll do my best to stay warm. We're actually going to the Bills game tomorrow, and it's supposed to be pretty cold in Buffalo, but we'll be ready for it.
Well, go Bills. As a Giants fan, I'm still pulling for them just because, why not? It's upstate New York. I mean, it's the only true New York team, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, Nate. Well, appreciate your time, man. Happy holidays to you and your family, and look forward to seeing you here in an upcoming trade show or conference, man.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much for having me. Look forward to keeping in touch, Jesse.
All right. Take care.
You too.